Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode of BARBENO'S World. Today I've got kind of a special episode planned because it's episode 50, and it's been almost a year I think of me making these videos. If you've ever seen Etho's Minecraft Let's Play series, you'd know that he does a world tour every 50 episodes. And I think that's really cool because it helps anyone that's not caught up kind of get oriented with where I am in the series and learn about everything that I've built so far. So the way that I want to organize this world tour is going to be like I start here at spawn in my starter house and show you everything that I've built nearby here, and then when we're looking at the stuff that's a little bit farther out, we can look at those in chronological order of which ones I built first. One thing we'll also be doing is looking at this really cool map that I made with a program called Overviewer. And this is basically a render of my entire world here, and it's really large. So basically I can show you this map every once in a while to point out where we are in the tour. Oh yeah, and one more thing before we start, I'm going to be posting a world download of my world here, and that should be linked in the description. And also, I built a lot of things in this world that were designed by or based on designs by other people, and I'll try to give them credit where I can. So I'll put text on screen for each of those builds, and I'll try to link them in the description as well. So now let's get on with the tour. Yeah, we're just going to start at spawn right here at my starter house. This is the very first thing that I built when I created this world. And it used to be in the middle of a really big plains biome, but as you can see, this is completely changed. But yeah, the starter house is still one of my favorite builds to this day, and I really like the Japanese house style. I don't visit it much anymore though. I mostly just preserve it here in this big glass box so that it can be kept for historical integrity. If you haven't seen, this is my spawn area. It's an extremely large area, a couple hundred blocks on each side, and it's completely filled up with blackstone on the floors, and it's supposed to give like a deserted and rocky environment feel. I built these super tall walls up on all of the sides with a wall machine, which basically used flying machines to push concrete powder around the whole square. Back inside now, we can check out some of the basic amenities I've got. A small sheep farm here, which I still use to this day to get a lot of wool, even though I do have a better sheep farm. And we have a pumpkin and melon farm here, which is mostly off to avoid lag. A really big mob farm up there, and a sugarcane farm there, and there's also an iron farm in there. This iron farm here has actually been continually running for like over a year now, and it still produces just enough iron for me not to want to build a new one. The drops from most of those farms that I've mentioned come into this room here, and we basically just got a bunch of chests where we can collect all of the drops if I need to. Since I mentioned that mob farm, we can also take a look at the building below it. This was kind of my starter base, I guess, after my starter house. It's a really big pyramid, and I spent a really long time building it, but it really didn't get much use. So on the inside, all we have is a nice furnace array here that I occasionally use, and a small but adequate storage area. I still keep my dragon egg in this base, so I really need to not forget it's here. As you can probably tell, the mob farm is directly up above this building, so when it's running, it's just dropping mobs down constantly into there. Right now I've got a few zombies that have survived because they have feather falling. Moving on a little bit further east, we have some more industrial farms that are less decorated and just in a really big building. We have this flower farm here, which I used for a while, but don't use it anymore. And inside of this big round warehouse, I have some of my largest and ugliest contraptions. Over here, we have a really big cobblestone generator that puts all of the cobblestone into these chests. I use this to get most of my cobblestone and stone. Here we've got another TNT duping based farm. It's my wood farm. I use this for almost all of my wood, oak wood, birch wood, spruce wood, and jungle wood. This is another farm that I've had since all the way before I started the series, and it's been serving me well. We also have a couple slow and ugly honey farms over here that I don't use. Alright, I think we're done with the main spawn area here now, so let's open this piston door to get to our first major project that I did in these 50 episodes. That's right, we're looking at the castle now. This is definitely the project that I spent the longest on out of anything that I did in the Barbenos World series. But honestly, it doesn't seem that big when you look at the whole thing. But I think one thing that made this take really long was I wasn't really experienced with doing large builds. And I did all of this without planning in survival. So there's a lot of trial and error involved. And yeah, honestly, I just wasn't very efficient back then. Yeah, so as I said, I spent a really long time in this project, and probably most of my time from episode about 1 to 16 was spent at the castle here. And the outside of it was done entirely freehand, and it took me a while. At first, I built this entire thing out of stone, and all of the walls were just really flat and pretty boring looking. And after that, I put in a bunch of stone bricks throughout. The walls definitely don't look like anything special now, but they're at least presentable. All my roofs are made of prismarine and dark prismarine. Once again, I didn't plan out any of these roofs, and there's a lot of trial and error involved in building them. But I think they all actually turned out really well. This one's definitely my favorite with the little plaster windows. And one more thing that I also spent a really long time on, even though it's not very visible most of the time, is this cliff here. Most of the castle was actually overhanging over the outside of this mountain, so I had to build this entire cliff custom. And I think it turned out really well, even though it's at the back, and I probably wouldn't notice if I hadn't done this. One more piece of terraforming that I did around here was this waterfall and the small pool at the bottom. I'm not exactly sure why I did this, but it's probably a nice addition. Now we can move on to the inside of the castle and check out some of what I've got here. Now right here is the area that I spend most of my time in this world, and this is my auto-sorted storage system designed by Tango Tech, and each of these is a multi-item sorter, so in each chest I can have a bunch of different items just allocated to each slot, and all of the items will sort through. And if you see back here, there's a ton of complex redstone, and I actually built this before I had light matica, so there were a lot of things that I messed up. But it should all be working now. Upstairs in the castle, we have some pretty typical interiors, I guess. I built a bunch of rooms inside. This is a nice furnace room for a small 8 furnace smelter. We have a throne room over here with a custom throne. Got a little bedroom here. A map room here that we haven't yet populated. A crafting room, I guess, here. Tool storage room where we have some tools. An enchanting room with our bookshelves and stuff. And finally, our brewing room with a automatic brewer, which I believe was designed by Omango. Okay, now that we're done looking over the castle, it's time to move on to my nether. I spend a lot of time doing projects here. Even though I really don't like it, but I feel like it's kind of necessary to have a lot of nether infrastructure. And one thing that's obvious here is this big nether hub that I built. And this is something I did only after quite a long while of just running around without anything. And I think this makes it a lot nicer. Before I did any of this, I want to show you a few things that I built in the nether back when I had just updated to 1.16. Also, I don't have an overview or render of the nether, so you'll just have to look at these screenshots that I took with a really high render distance. Anyways, here are the first 2 farms that I built in the nether. I've got this very simple basalt generator here. I only built this decoration later, but I think it turned out very nice. I use this to get basalt occasionally, even though it's not a block that I use a lot of. Over to the right of this is another farm. This is the Hoglin farm. This was, I think, the first Nether farm that I built, and it's so stupidly fast that I'm pretty sure I've only ever had to AFK it for one night, and I've still been using those same pork chops. Basically, the Hoglins spawn on the jack-o'-lanterns here and get scared by the warped fungi and run into the fire. This farm is actually my own design, but it's not too complicated. Moving on, we have another pretty big nether farm over here. This one I built also near the start of my series, and it is definitely one of my favorite of the earlier episodes. I also designed this farm myself, and it works very nicely. My mob switch is on, so you can't see it running right now. But basically how it works is mobs will spawn on these magma platforms and be attracted to turtle eggs in the middle, fall down, and splat on these hoppers. One thing that's interesting about this farm is the storage area. I actually stored everything in the overworld, and I get all of the items into the overworld by shooting them through a nether portal. So here's the storage area in the overworld. It's just a big orange platform in the sky. But it definitely does the trick, and I've got plenty of storage here, not only for my gold farm, which is on this side, but for my piglin bartering farm, which you'll see in a second. Yeah, all the items from the piglin bartering farm also get shot through the portal. Here's my bartering farm. It's pretty simple actually, but I like the design that I came up with. It just has 6 piglins sitting in a hole, and they're getting spat out some gold from a hopper clock. This next farm here is another nether farm that I built near the start of my series. It's a wither skeleton farm. The design is pretty simple, and it's not very optimized because I built this very early game. But basically the concept of this is pretty unique. You actually use the top of the nether, and you drop down through this to actually get into the fortress. And there are wither skeletons spawning here that run into the middle. And I've just realized that I definitely don't have time to explain how everything works, so let's move on. Now let's quickly check out my end dimension, because I think this is a cool build, and it also relates to another farm that I built early game. This is my end portal room. I tried to make it look like the void, kind of. I used a lot of black concrete, and over here is actually where the end portal is. I used the fog effect below me and above me. One thing that's cool here is that you can't actually see the end portal, but if you jump, you get sent to the end. Unfortunately, that's going to be broken when I update to 1.17 though. Anyways, here is my Enderman farm. This is my main XP farm, and it's really simple, hasn't broken, and yeah, it's just generally a pretty good XP farm. My only other build in the end dimension is here. It's an ice road, and this goes out almost 50,000 blocks, actually more than 50,000 blocks, and I just built an automatic ice road maker, and that was designed by Omango. This is very cool, but also very pointless, so let's head back. One more thing you might notice here is that I've got all 20 entrance end portals around the island, and that's because I killed the Ender Dragon 20 times, actually using an automatic method. Okay, I actually lied about there not being any more builds in the end. I actually forgot about this Wither Rose farm that I did. And that's because I've never even come here since I built it. I'm a little bit scared too because there's a wither here. Should be contained technically, but there's always a risk. So Endermen fall down from the spawning floor up there, and they get killed by the wither who's targeting a chicken. Alright, next build time. Here's the slime farm. This probably is still to this day the longest I've spent on a single project, and I did it all in one episode. You should definitely check it out. But yeah, this was a huge pain to make. It's a quad chunk slime farm, and for some reason I thought it would be a good idea to do this in the middle of an ocean. So I had to spend a really long time draining out this massive area of water, and then I dug all the way down to bedrock to put in the actual farm. I don't know if I would say that the effort was worth it, but it's definitely a cool farm and very nice to have. All of the slime balls go into this really weird green and red storage room. Alright, the next build we're checking out now is part of a series of builds that took me quite a few episodes to complete, and this is my raid farm. This is part of a really big operation to get a bunch of emeralds and to trade them with villagers at a big trading hall area. Now, this farm was mostly successful. It's definitely really good when it works, but I've had a couple instances in which I've died at it, so I'm a little bit afraid of AFKing at it, but I still do use it a lot. I just kind of make sure I'm not about to die. From the raid farm now, we can just head south a little bit, and we should be able to see another project. That is my actual villager area. Okay, let's check this out part by part in FreeCam. At the top here, we've got the villager breeder. The farmer feeds these villagers, they breed, produce baby villagers. It's a little bit broken. The baby villagers go in here, grow up, and I can... oh my god, that's a lot of them. Anyways, I can extract them here, and select their trades in this room, zombify them if I want, cure them if I want, and send them down. They will go through this area and end up on this rail, fall down, and go into whichever trading hall I direct them into. Most recently, I was filling up this trading hall on the right with some toolsmith villagers to get some pickaxes. But additionally, I have trading halls for clerics here, a trading hall for masons over here, and this is the one that I spent the most effort on, a trading hall for librarians here. And this took me so long because I needed to get every single type of librarian to sell me every single book. The next build is really far away, so I need to take this blue ice road to get all the way out there, which is quite a few thousand blocks even in the Nether. So for some reason, after I finished building those villager areas, I decided that I wanted to spend a lot more time working with villagers, and I built a mob switch here. So the thing that I needed to do for this is breed up a ton of villagers, so I made a really big villager breeder here, and that would store the villagers here, or put them through a portal, but now that's all disabled. Basically, what I needed to do was collect a ton of villagers, trade with them, and zombify them. So I've got 70 zombie villagers in here, and I also have 70 zombie villagers on the nether side in another obsidian box. There it is. Getting all of these guys into the mob switch was a pretty stressful and long process, but now that I have the mob switch, it actually disables mob spawning anywhere in the overworld or nether, so that's really convenient, and I can turn it on and off as I need. The next thing that I built was another more traditional grindy build, and this was another farm on top of the nether, a magma cube farm. It's the exact same design as my slime farm, which I thought was pretty cool, or at least quite similar, and a bunch of magma cubes spawn and they're attracted to the golem. I used the magma cream from this farm to craft some magma blocks and expand my gold farm. The next thing I did was probably one of my favorite redstone contraptions that I've ever done here, and this is a Enderpearl stasis chamber teleportation system based on something I saw Etho do in his world. And you might have seen me teleporting around randomly by pressing buttons in the series, and you might have been confused how I did it. And basically what I have here is an Enderpearl stasis chamber, where an Enderpearl is held up by a bubble column, and we have something that triggers the trapdoor here. Now, the main effort that was actually put into this was building the redstone wire for the system. And to trigger the system, we had to have an instant redstone wire. So instead of using repeaters, we had sticky pistons and redstone blocks. And this stretches out for hundreds of blocks underground all the way from my castle to the spawn base. And I also built another Enderpearl teleporter that goes from my world spawn here in this little greeting room to my spawn base. My next project here is kind of a combination of a technical project and a building project that I worked on at the same time to make this really nice garden area. And this holds all of my dye farms with a cactus farm there, Ilmango's small flower farm here, and some 2 tall flower farms over here. And I all decorated them to look really nice. Oh, cocoa farm over there. I all decorated them to be really nice and fit into this gardens area. I think I learned a lot about building when I was designing all of these builds for the area. And I think this is one of the things that definitely improved my building a lot. And I saw a big improvement in my builds after the garden. We don't have time to look at everything, but let's take a quick look at the inside of this cactus farm. So in here, I've got a bunch of cactus plants stacked up, and this is a pretty simple design where the cactuses automatically pop off on the fence posts and get pushed down to the collection area. And from here, they get picked up by mine carts, which take them into the smelting area. And this smelter's actually fueled by a bamboo farm down here, which takes bone meal. And basically, when this is all up and running, I get a ton of green dye being outputted. One more thing that you might see at the gardens is this big abandoned warehouse looking over the wall. And this is my sheep farm. And I have a ton of sheep in here that are all different colors, getting sheared, and all of the wool gets put down into the chests down here, which I can access from a tunnel that goes all the way to my gardens area. Moving on now, we can start to look at some of the much more recent projects that I've done in the last few episodes. And the first one of those is going to be the witch farm. Alright, here it comes. Perfect. Alright, we've arrived at the witch farms. I've got this area in the swamp where I cleared out a huge area of trees, lit everything up, and yeah, in this entire area there shouldn't be any spawning spaces. Except for in this witch hut over here, where I've built one of Ilmango's witch farms, and the other witch farm all the way over there. Each of these farms, I think, produces about 4,000 items per hour, and all of the items get collected by water streams and put up to the AFK spot over here. And I've got a bunch of chests in this little room with all of the different things that I get. What makes this witch farm very special is that it's like double the speed of a normal witch farm because it's very rare to find double witch huts, and that's why we needed to come out so far to find this location. Alright, moving on now, we've got something super crazy that should be appearing on the horizon pretty soon now. And there it is. This is my BARBENO'S World logo map art. And this is probably the most amount of blocks that I've placed in like a single weekend for an episode. It was pretty crazy. I basically just took a schematic and spent a really long time placing down every single block in the right position. But it turned out super well, and we can actually check on what the map looks like. Incredible. Yeah, this map isn't really useful for anything, I just think it's a cool thing to have, and I can paste it around in item frames as decoration. Alright, we should be coming up on another really massive build soon. This over here is my Netherwart Farm. when I needed to collect a lot of Netherwart just for one project, I decided that instead of doing an automatic farm, I should build a really large kind of manual farm, and it's just harvestable one time with water, and then you have to replant the entire thing. I do not want to harvest it now because it takes like half an hour to replant. But yeah, this farm produces a few thousand netherwort for a single harvest, so I won't really need to use it that much. Now, straight west from here, I think we should be coming up on another one of my recent farm builds. This is going to be the second last thing that we're going to look at today, and I think this is pretty cool. Alright, here we are. This is the Drowned Farm. I kind of built this in preparation for the new 1.17 update. This is going to be a kind of starter copper farm. It didn't take as much effort to build as it looks, because most of it is just made out of flowing water. But basically how it works is a ton of drowns will spawn in these waterfalls and drop out the bottom, get attracted to the turtle egg, and fall down. This farm was designed by Ilmango again. Alright, I was a little bit wrong. The drowned farm is not the second last build we're looking at. The tunnel bore here is going to be. Here we go. Alright, there really isn't much to see here. It's just a really big tunnel bore with a bunch of TNT dupers. We're going to be using this a little bit more in the new update 1.17. So you'll probably see a lot of it in future episodes. But yeah, for now, I'm just leaving it here and waiting till I update. Let's go back. Now, as we wrap this episode up, we can take a look at the newest build of my world, and probably my favorite. This is what I would say to be the culmination of like a year of work in the survival world. And it's super cool, just this entire area. There's so much to look at. First, we have this little barracks building over here. It's in the same style as the castle, but much, much smaller. And this building houses my furnace array. Once again, this is designed by Ilmango, and it's very cool. Pretty sure this has over 100 furnaces. This dragon was one of my favorite builds because I'm really proud of how I designed the build. I didn't actually like design this dragon myself really. I used a 3D model, and I did a lot of stuff to make it work inside of Minecraft. So I would definitely check out the video that I built this in if you want to see more. But yeah, this dragon is kind of terrorizing the little village down here. Where we've got a ton of houses that I've worked on over the course of a bunch of different episodes. This is supposed to be a simple medieval village, sort of like a heap settlement, with all of the buildings not really super organized, but just all spaced out in this area. We don't have time to look at every single build here, but you can look at all of the builds on either side of this road here. We've also got this road here with a few more houses and a little garden. And some extra builds over here in the corner. Now, as the sun sets, we can move on to the latest addition to my village area. This place is super nice. I like the vibe of it. We have this little market area that's on the outskirts of town with a ton of market stalls with all different colors. It's super nice, and the market area leads into the wheat fields. Basically, I just wanted to make a really large wheat field, and I spent a really long time doing this. I wanted to make it as large as I could make it without it looking kind of comical. And I think I succeeded because this wheat field is kind of a realistic size, but still impressively large. And obviously in the middle, we have this windmill. Anyways, guys, that is gonna be it for the world tour. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing all of these builds from my first 50 episodes of BARBENO'S World. Yeah, it was definitely really nice for me, and I enjoyed doing this because it brought back a lot of memories of me building all of these builds that you saw here today. Now, before we finish, I guess I'll talk a little bit about the future of BARBENO'S World. It's not ending. But since the 1.17 update came out, we are going to update it sometime pretty soon for the next episode. So definitely stay tuned for that, but no promises for when it's going to come out. I do, though, have a ton of different plans for stuff that we can do in the new update. Also, remember guys, if you want to check out the world download for my world, it'll be in the description, as well as all of the builds that I did that were based on or designed by other people. So, I guess that's going to be it. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.
BARBENO'S World.